Hey, what's up, guys? Just wanted to talk about something that we couldn't go over in the sermon last night because of time. You know, we talked about our living hope through the resurrection of Jesus. We've talked about the living Word that is living and abiding. And last night we talked about, or on Wednesday night, we talked about the living stone that Jesus is, that the builders rejected him, but that in God's sight he was chosen and precious. And then there was this idea that we are living stones as well, and we are being used to build up this spiritual house, God's temple and dwelling place on the earth today. Right, that's what we talked about. And there's one interesting little thing when you think about Peter being named Rock. Have you thought about that? So Peter's writing about the living stone, but Jesus changes his name from Simon to Peter. And there's all this controversy about Peter. If you didn't know, basically the Roman Catholic Church asserts that there should be a pope because of Jesus renaming Peter. And we see this story in Matthew chapter 16. It says, "Now when Jesus came into the district of Caesarea Philippi," this is 16, starting in verse 13, "he asked his disciples, 'Who do people say that the Son of Man is?' And they said, 'Some say John the Baptist, others say Elijah, and others Jeremiah or one of the prophets.' He said to them, 'But who do you say that I am?' Simon Peter replied, 'You are the Christ, the Son of the living God.' And Jesus answered him, 'Blessed are you, Simon Bar-Jonah, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father who is in heaven. And I tell you, you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it.'" And so here is the debate over this text. The Roman Catholic Church says that Peter and his office that he now holds is the rock on which Jesus will build the church. And basically this is a justification of it. But we would disagree with that and say that the rock is not Peter himself or some office Peter would hold one day as this unfailing church authority that whatever he says goes. But instead, we believe that the rock is the confession that Peter makes. See, he says, "I tell you, you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church." And we think the rock is the confession in verse 16, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." And one of the arguments for our view of this is kind of an argument from silence based on the passage that we studied Wednesday night. If you think about it, Peter's talking about Jesus being the living stone and how we are also living stones that are building up this temple. Be the perfect time to mention, and hey, by the way, I am the rock on which the church is being built. He never says that though, which is interesting. He just keeps his focus on Jesus, and then he applies generally the rock imagery, the living stone imagery, to all Christians. Karen Jobes, not Carrie Jobes, but Karen Jobes talks about this in her commentary. This is one of the commentaries I use to get ready for Wednesday nights. It says, "There is not even a hint that Peter thought of himself as being a special or foundational stone in the church, even though Jesus had given him the nickname that means rock. His silence here, where such a suggestion would be most natural, lends support to the understanding that the rock of Matthew 16:18, on which Christ will build the church, is the confession of Jesus being the Christ, not Peter himself." So take heart, Christian. The church, the kingdom of heaven, is not being built on men. It's not built on Peter, and it's not built on any pope, right? But instead, the church is built upon the confession, the good confession of Jesus being the Christ. Have you confessed that yourself? Have you identified Jesus as the Messiah, as the Son of the living God? Because that is what the kingdom of heaven is built on. That is the way to eternal life, and that is the way to become a living stone like we talked about. So don't stumble over this rock, but put your faith in this living stone. Come to Jesus in faith, and he's good to save. So hopefully this is helpful to you. See you next time.